Hey guys, hey, I'm going to do a tutorial for graphic design 2, and there was a project that was created, and it's actually a longer project, projects 6 and 7. Just going to bring up that PDF really quickly. Vector icons and postcard for holiday fundraising. This was a real project that one of my previous students had done for actually Dene College, or Dene College reached out to them to do the project, and I sort of facilitated that communication. But I thought, wow, this is a really good real world example of a project, a real life project that a client might ask someone to do. And it's essentially a fundraising campaign for the institution. And so they need a postcard that they're going to send out to all of their alumni, and and on that postcard is, a little holiday cheer, some icons representing the holiday, and also a friendly reminder that if they have any extra funds to help out with student scholarships and so forth, then Dene College could use the assistance or the help. So yeah, fundraising, like a donation campaign through a postcard. So there are two parts to this. The first part is in regards to the vector icons, and the second part is in regards to the postcard itself. So if we scroll down, I have created all these directions, but the truth is, and also the given, of course, that's always really important. A conservative and modern design with an academic feel, so nothing too crazy, right? For college, for tribal college alumni, should be clear and easy to read, that goes without saying. And holiday inspired typography. Um, some precedents were provided, some examples to look at and learn from. And the logo of that Dene College uses was provided. So there are a few things, and also the copy uh, should be verbatim from the client example, but modifies, to accommodate your design vision. So that means if you really feel it's necessary, you can change the copy, but it's not necessarily advised. Remember, the client, knows what they want, although you can be persuasive if necessary. So the dimensions, I think that's really important. 6.5 by 9 inches landscape view, and that's not necessarily a standard postcard size, but an enlarged postcard size. But that's what the client requested, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, so here are some directions, and I'm not going to bore you with reading those back to you because you can look at the PDF on your own time. But as you can see, there are two project phases. So the first phase is in regards to those vectors being uploaded. So the holiday icons, and I'm not sure, I hope I do specify how many. Let's see here. Holiday inspired vector icons, 1-to-1 ratio artboards. That's interesting. It doesn't look like I specify how many. So I guess that's up to you as the designer. How many vector icons do you want to create for this postcard? And these are the ones that I created. And I also used this kind of geometric system, for creating these icons. And we're going to be exploring that a little bit as well as we move through this tutorial, and also the color scheme. Here are I think this is the example that Dene College provided. So you can see it's pretty clear, and this is the one that I sort of did as an example. And I didn't use all the icons, but I guess I had a good time creating them because I created uh, 9 of them, yeah. Season of giving, and then choosing a typeface, and yeah, okay. So here, in the PDF, I do kind of map out how I'm structuring a lot of these assets, but this is more of like the postcard process. What I'm going to be focusing on today is the actual process of using Adobe Illustrator to create these icons. And again, we're compositing with Adobe InDesign, but we're creating assets with Photoshop and Illustrator, and then we're bringing them together in InDesign. So first thing you should do is you should have a project folder, kind of like what I have going on here. So I have Graphic Design 2, Project 6 and 7, called Holiday, Postcard, Holiday Fundraising. And then you can see here's the InDesign file for the actual PDF that I've given you in the directions. These are some provided assets that I've given to you that might be helpful. So these are just examples of some icons. Here is the logo from Dene College. Here is the photo that they provided. So a few things that might be useful to you I've provided via Blackboard. And these are some precedents of a front and a back fundraising card that you can take a look at if you'd like. Before we even do that, though, we need to create, again, these vector icons. And if you go to my assets folder for this project, you can see that, yeah, here is one Illustrator file for each of these icons. So I'm just going to open one just to kind of show you what's going on here. Let's turn on the grid here, and you can kind of see I didn't focus so much on the grid when I was creating these icons. It was more fluid. So, but the thing I want you to notice right now is that the artboard. So if I come over here and click on the artboard tool, it'll show you that that these artboards are 2 by 2 inches. They could be a little bit larger. Maybe we'll do that when I create some new ones. We'll make them more like 4 by 4 inches, or maybe even like 6 by 6 inches. But you can see I have these modular square artboards where each vector icon is going to rest right smack in the middle. Okay. And here on the right-hand side, I think it's interesting to note also these colors. If we go back to the PDF briefly, this is something I like to do a lot to rationalize color decisions. But there's a screenshot of this thing called Adobe Color. And you can actually upload an image, and then you can select on the left-hand side how it will, I guess, isolate and prioritize certain colors to create a color scheme. And as you can see, that color scheme is similar to what I'm doing here. I think it looks like I chose maybe bright or something else, one of these other options, because it's slightly different. I get this beautiful kind of warm, soft pink color, and I wanted that because I knew I wanted to create a heart icon. So if we go back again, like everything is in my assets folder, so it's well organized so I can find things. But there's the file for the heart that I created, the geometric heart icon. So this is handy to have kind of just like right next door, with all of your files, so that you can use it to populate some of the fills in here. I'll show you how to do that in a bit. But we're going to be starting fresh. I think these icons are nice, but we're going to be starting fresh. But I do want, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to just save as, and I'm going to save them in the exact same location, but instead of calling them Geometric Christmas 1, I'm going to say Geometric Christmas A. So it'll be like a separate series of vectors. Okay. So that way this color palette will sort of come with. It won't get left behind. So you can kind of see, there it is. That's my new file right there. I don't need this anymore because I'm starting over, but it looks to me like, whoops, get rid of all this. We need to open up our layers palette. And I do have a base. I don't need that right now. Here's the palette. It's not locked down. Okay, so I'm going to delete that because I'm going to be starting over. But the other thing I want to do is I want to expand this artboard. I want it to be, I don't know. This thing's in the way here. Okay. I also need to go to View. Snap to Grid, because I want this grid right, like just perfectly on that artboard. And I think it'll be easier if I just say I want the width and height to be 6 by 6 inches. So there's our square right there. Now we gotta, it's really important that you get this guy. You can kind of see that there are some slightly thicker lines and then less than thick lines. And I'm trying to align this grid to those thick lines. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm kind of setting up my document right now so that I can create these digital icons, but within a system of design. And I'll show you here in a second how I'm going to be doing that. And just because I'm a little bit OCD, you can kind of see I'm already trying to arrange my workspace. So I'm going to hit Command S for save, and we'll just go from there. Now, I don't think I need a base right now, but I do need a diagram to work with. So I'm going to rename this layer diagram. I'm going to make it appear. And I'm going to delete that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my pen tool. Okay. And darn it, it's not. Get out my swatch, default swatch, art and illustration. I'm just going to put this on the side over here so I can use it. But essentially, I know I want to create some geometric vector icons that are holiday inspired, but I'm much more comfortable working with a system, so to speak, an underlying system to kind of help me or guide me with my decisions. And so again, I want to confirm that Snap to Grid is on. That's good. So that means when I use my pen tool and create these points, see how it's just kind of snapping? I love that. You know, Illustrator is so beautiful with its precision. And I'm going to close the loop, and you'll notice when I come back around, that little circle icon appears. So I'm closing the loop, and that's created a triangle for me to work with within a 1-inch grid, right? So I'm using the grid system, but also I'm using the grid system to create a diagrammatic sort of vector shape underlying structure that will guide my decisions to create my vector icons, if that makes sense. It'll make sense when we're a little further along. I don't want to use that color block, but I always use magenta or, you know, some kind of bright color. I need to rotate that triangle, so I'm going to come up here. I've selected it with my black arrow tool. Come up here to Object, Transform, Rotate 180, and now I'm just going to fit that guy right in there and see how it just kind of, because Snap to Grid is still on. Look at this, man. Illustrator is really, really powerful. Okay, so that's a good start. Now I'm just going to sort of repeat this system. So I'm copying and pasting. That's all. Really simple. Actually, yep, I don't need that one. Guy needs to go over a little bit. Yeah. Let's see here. So now let's try it again. I think that's pretty much what I want to do, something similar to that. I'm trying to, again, situate this system. And I can also toggle with my, after I select all of these guys, I can use my arrows to just kind of move them left, right. And it's going to, whatever I have there, because I have, again, view, snap to grid engaged, whatever I move, it's going to be talking to the grid. But this needs to go over like so, correct? And then I'm going to need, there we go. I don't need that anymore. Now, if I'm not mistaken, now I'm set to go where I can just kind of, all right. It's more than we needed. We don't need these, right? Okay. We could snip these outer areas off, but I'm not so concerned with that, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these and I'm going to reduce the opacity up here at the top to 50%. And the reason being is I still want to be able to see the grid behind this structural frame that I've created with these triangles. I still want to be able to see the grid. In fact, I could reduce that even further to, like, let's say 25%. All right, now I'm going to lock that down. So yeah, it's on a specific layer and I've labeled it diagram. And so I think we're kind of doing a little bit of prep right now, essentially. So now I'm going to start working on this layer. And just for my own reference, let's see, that first one is a Christmas tree. And just to kind of speed things up a little bit, I'm gonna just kind of see how this would fit in the scheme of things. See if it would work at all. Interesting. I almost kind of wish that I had created a smaller grid system. Let's try that really quickly. So you can kind of see I'm just kind of rolling with, the process that I'm experiencing here. So I'm going to unlock that layer. I'm also going to move these guys over a little bit. They're a little bit too close, in my opinion. So yeah, let's just duplicate this whole layer. So if I grab this layer and drag it to the plus sign icon, I can just make a copy of that layer. So now I can lock the original down, make it go away. And now I can deal with this new layer and I'm going to call it diagram 2 to see if that will help my process at all. And essentially what I want to do is I want to make smaller triangles for my frame. I've already done the work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at this. So, and again, you can just kind of toggle things around, right? I mean, these kinds of moves are bread and butter as far as design and solving problems. So you need to really make yourself comfortable with doing these sort of preparatory moves so that you can create some incredible illustrations. So yeah, I think that's set to go. I don't need these larger forms, but I do want to keep this. And I'm just gonna, instead of doing that multiple times, I'm just gonna prepare one that's precise and works just fine. And I'm just gonna duplicate them all the way down. I love those sorts of, this is why I love design software. It's really, it still always gets me excited. It's fun. So now we have two systems to work with, but I have a feeling that this smaller scale is going to be more valuable for our process. And I'm going to come down here. I'm actually going to drag this tree or this, oops. I'm going to put this on a different layer. You can kind of see that that tree is currently on layer 1. If I want to move that to a different layer, I just grab this blue icon on the right-hand side and just drag it down. And I'm going to try to center things. Our tree is going to end up looking a little bit different, which is perfectly fine compared to that one. But, I just wanted an example, something to kind of guide me a little bit. So I'm going to lock that down. So you can kind of already get a sense of what I'm trying to do, all right? Okay, let's leave that. Although let's grab it. Whoops. Leave this. I'm going to lock that down temporarily. I'm going to do the same thing with this Christmas tree. I got to unlock that layer. Select it. And then I have to reduce the opacity to, because I just want to be able to barely see it. Right now it's a little bit too, it's kind of imposing on my process. And I've reduced the opacity and I can lock it down. And now I'm going to go back to, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just kind of like freewheeling it here, guys. And that's the way it should be sometimes. I'm going to take diagram 2. I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to call this icon. So eventually that is going to become my icon, right? So now I've almost kind of duplicated that layer, right? No big deal, but I don't need these. And I don't need these either. And I'm pretty, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but look, I can kind of already see how this form is going to turn into my Christmas tree. Okay. I make this red for now. Although it doesn't look red because the opacity is reduced, right? I'm going to do the same thing here. Oops, that should be yellow too. And I like how it kind of wraps around, right? Kind of does this. So, I mean, we're kind of using the backdrop as a guide, but because we have a different system with this particular design, it's going to look a little bit different. And we might have to make this go away for a second so that we can kind of compare the two. I'm pretty sure that not bad. looks like this goes down here. Is that correct? There we go. And then this. This is kind of fun. All right. I like it. Okay, so again, like using the structural system to kind of map out some vector-inspired icons. So we've kind of created the tree. We're not quite done yet. Let's get rid of all this other stuff. And like I said, we're not getting rid of the diagram. The diagram is still there on that layer. But I mean, these were the process steps that I needed to go through to kind of help me to figure out the design problem. Okay, guys? And I'm getting rid of all this other stuff. Right. Okay, so now we need, with this particular example, there was a real nice outline, right? So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another layer and put it above icon. I'm going to call it icon outline. And I'm just going to use my pen tool. I'm going to look at my precedent. Yeah, it's pretty easy. We just need to boom, 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 boom. And I'm being a little sloppy with this right now, aren't I? That's okay, because I want it to be black. And I don't want it to have a black fill, but a black stroke. So all I have to do is come over here and hit this little swap fill and stroke function. And then grab the white direct selection tool. And you can see I can grab these anchor points and move them around. We're not trying to copy the other one, but we're definitely thinking of it as an example. So I'm going to boost up this, maybe like 3, I don't know. The same thing. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Again, grab the white arrow selection tool and, oops, Command Z, priceless. Oh my gosh, I mean, Illustrator is just so amazing. Oh, better save it before our program crashes or something nutty happens. So if I'm not mistaken, there's also, if we bring back our precedent, no, okay, all right, we're still good. Yeah. Okay, let's keep on going down this road. So grab the pen tool. White selection tool to realign those anchor points. And oops, it's not, I don't like that. Because look at it's kind of, essentially, we could try something else. Let's, you don't always have to close the loop. Let's see if this works. Just leave it as is. We'll leave it as an open object. There we go. Like that. Okay, looking good. Save. And we're getting closer to the end here. Precedent. Yeah, I mean, I think I randomly chose some of these colors, so, but blue, brown, yeah. Let's make this go away for a second. So now we're at a point where I think we can actually, well, yeah, remove that icon. I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to bring the opacity up to 100. Okay. And then I'm going to select these guys. And I'm going to hit I for the eyedropper tool, but you can also come over here and find it within your tools palette. And I'm going to select this light blue. You can leave these as separate icons. 1, 2, 3. You don't see I guess a seam here, but if you really want to, if I'm not mistaken, you can select all of these guys, then come up here to Window, and go to your Pathfinder tool, and you can unite. So now that is actually one object instead of several. Okay, and again, that was the Pathfinder tool. So I'm going to be doing the same thing, and again, with my left pinky, I'm holding Shift so I can select multiple objects, and then I'm going to unite them. Oops. Although I didn't unite all of them, did I? Oops. Messed up. Okay. Unite. Save. And I think this color was brown. Same thing here. I'm going to unite those guys, and then I'm going to make that color. I think it was a slightly different blue. Oh, I missed one, didn't I? Okay, now it's full. Slightly darker blue, so it's a very subtle difference, but I think kind of important. And I'm going to go back, look at, actually no, that's the dark blue. Hey, I made a mistake. Okay, so I think this one right there. And now I've selected all those guys. I'm going to unite them, and I'm going to make this the darker blue. Okay, so that's our holiday-inspired Christmas tree. And to remind you, I got the colors from that photograph that was provided by Diné College, which is essentially the colors that are in the environment on Diné College campus. So in a way, it kind of makes sense to rationalize decisions that way from my perspective. So now I'm going to turn my icon outlines on again, and look at that. Wow. So now all I have to do is create a simple trunk, right? And I'm gonna move that there. Now look at what's going on. It's inheriting that blue that I was using, but that's not what I want. So I'm gonna have to come over here, double click black, and I'm also gonna have to bump up the stroke to 3. Maybe a little bit larger though, since it is a tree trunk. I'll leave that up to you. Yeah, a nice simple vector icon. So I would just repeat this process as many times for whatever icons that you want to produce. And if we just kind of open up, you can see the same system can sort of be used. You know, it sort of creates this continuity or this unity with the vector objects that makes them all similar yet different. And that's part of the job of that underlying triangulated structure that we were working on. So your next step would be probably to decide that you're happy with the way that things look. You hit save, and then you're going to come over here and you're going to save as, and then you're going to change the file name to D. Okay, and you're going to make sure it's in this appropriate location or folder, and then you're going to hit save. So now the truth is we can start over. So we can just select all this and delete, and then bring back our diagram, and and possibly change the precedent, right? So I'm going to make these layers go away temporarily. The other precedent would be, what are we working on next? And by the way, you can use any icons you want, which is why in the provided assets, I think I give you some samples here to work with, but obviously you can search online. You can do anything you want. You don't even have to use that triangulated structure. You can create any framework or structure that you want. This tutorial isn't necessarily to show you how to copy my process, but to give you some cues as to how to use the software so that you can create your own vision and make it happen. But it's also an opportunity to learn the software and how all the software kind of works together. And what I'll do next in the next tutorial is I'll actually show you how to place these things, place these Illustrator files that you're working on in your assets folder. So initially when I created that publication, I was placing these Illustrator files that are uniquely created into my document. And we started that process with this one, with this new Christmas tree, which I don't know, somehow I kind of like better than the old one. I kind of think that maybe the outline stroke needs to be a little bit thicker. But those are aesthetic decisions that you kind of make along your design journey. There's no right or wrong way to do this, although there are some rules associated with graphic design that we're kind of learning. And then eventually, when you get really, really good at graphic design, you're able to sort of question and unlearn those rules and behave and operate in a more independent manner. but it's a good idea to learn those rules first before you break them, honestly. Yeah, so I created 9. I would suggest that you create at least 5 of these geometric Christmas icons. Because in the example, for my particular layout, that's what I did. I used only 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So some of them I thought weren't even worthy. I think the heart icon to me was very important because we're talking about generosity and giving and the non-Scrooge heart, okay? And so that's design representation and symbolism happening here. Actually, there is a 6th icon that I used. I used the snowflake on the bottom of the card. So yeah, I'm gonna stop this tutorial, and again, this is for phase 6 or project 6. And we'll talk about project 7, which is the actual publication in the next tutorial. Okay.